I was looking for this one, and I found it. Okay, so the last time I actually drove a car by myself was 1996, Clinton said Monday in remarks to the National Automobile Dealers Association in New Orleans. I remember it very well. Unfortunately, so does the Secret Service, which is why I haven't driven since then. Obviously, a little bit of a joke. However, I do believe that it suggests a certain level of disconnection. And I pointed this out in one of my previous Hillary Said's. There's a couple of links there. I'll put them in the description that kind of expand the point. I think it's fairly intuitive. I don't really need to walk you down the path too far there. When somebody says I haven't driven a car in 20 years, um, it places them in a class stratus that makes them rather distant from the concerns of most people. And I really think a lot of what you hear from her is reflective of that. Her perspectives on free trade, for example, is just like she's just completely clueless. She hasn't spoken to a worker in her life, right? Um, her what was it specifically? It was the Kissinger thing, right? It's like somebody speaking positively of a Kissinger endorsement that wants to run. Like it's just absolutely completely disconnected, completely clueless. And you can even see it when you see her on like talk shows, right? Just like see, it kind of makes a little bit of sense if you want to live in a world of empires, which, as I've pointed out a few times, I think is the world that Clinton lives in, right? Where you have this elite aristocracy, and they're the philosopher king. I think that maybe she flatters herself, but that's not the world that most people want. Most people want a democracy, and they want to elect people that have lived at least a part of their life on this planet. So yeah, um, something Clinton said, and I think we should believe her too. Well, I was hoping to see a '60s punk band. Not literally, they're younger, but they sound very much like '60s punk, called Audacity. Um, but the weather's not looking so nice. Also coming up on the cutoff point, I have to say right now that it looks like I'm likely to stay in, but we'll see how that works out. I'm gonna get something to eat and come back to this afterwards. So it's about 20 to 6, and it's a combination of things. The hold front, I mean, you're dealing with hours, right? So it's, I had to come in a couple of hours earlier. It would be, warm and, not dry, but, just a little bit of drizzle. As it is, it's going to be gross, and it appears as though it's going to be pouring. The flip side of that is that I don't really, well, you can look at it both ways, right? The band that I'm going to see, or that I wanted to go to see, and that actually it appears at this point that I'm probably not going to see. would have been probably on at 10. Or, well, probably closer to 11. The last bus leaves at 12:30, right? So, I mean, the opening band is shit, absolute shit, right? So I'm not at all interested in that, but that means like, I mean, I could show up for 11, but then I have to leave like at 12, right? So it's, and that's kind of the other reason why I'm a little bit um, less keen about this. If it's late shows and they don't start going until like midnight, then like I might have to leave as soon as this. Like I've been to a few shows at this bar where the band where the headliner comes on at midnight, and then I have to leave at like 12:30 because it's Sunday. The buses leave early. Meaning that if the bus, if the band comes on at midnight, then I have to leave when the band comes on. So all of these things adding up to wanting to stay in tonight, probably. Um, there are a few caveats. Another thing is that my neck just got ripped open again. Um, and I think that what I just did to my neck might be related to the headaches that I've been having, which is not good. But the flip side of that is that once I get over it, hopefully it is gone, sort of thing, right? There's a really brutal ingrown on the inside of my neck. I think it's related to all the things. The tick, the difficulty swallowing, the whole thing, right? I think it's likely all related to this. I am at least sure that it's an ingrown now. For the longest time, I wasn't even sure because it was just so twisted around, right? I've had some bad ingrowns, but like this is something else. It was so twisted up, so twisted around that I wasn't. If you had told me it was a tumor, I would have believed you, despite knowing it's probably an ingrown. If I can get that out, if I can stay in tonight and get that out, that's another thing. Plus, I've got the archiving. So everything's adding up poorly regarding the show. The name of the band is Audacity. Give you a plug nonetheless. It's a shame because it's the kind of band that I like to see. It sounds quite dynamic, tight. It's just nothing's making sense at the moment. So I haven't ruled it out completely yet, but I mean that's about. I'd say chances of them going are around 10% at this point. I'd have to really make my way through things very quickly, and it's not going to happen. So, and I mean, and the weather would have to miraculously clear up. It's not going to happen either. So, it does seem very unlikely, but we'll find out. It's unlikely enough that I am not going to bother updating you. We're going to assume I don't go, and I'll have to surprise myself if I do. See, the problem is, it was obvious he had to go, but the problem is who it is that replaces him. I believe that the only candidates that have entered so far are a picture of Tommy Douglas and a mop bucket. And it's not entirely clear which one has the better healthcare plan. There's nobody left in this party. See, and that's the thing. I mean, it's like he had to go. He was a disaster. Okay, but there's no one left. um, so it's like the picture of Tommy Douglas or the mop bucket. See, this is why the Liberals govern for 30 years at a time, because the opposition just tanks. I don't know who he's gonna like honestly it's completely it could be Naomi Klein, and I'm not joking, it could be Naomi Klein, it's way open. Okay, it's wide open. There's no obvious um, successor because first he purged the party of anybody that was to his left, which was the entire party, except for like a lot of you know he replaced a lot of very very good MPs with a lot of just like yes people, right? And then his base seems to. I mean, I say that, but then I have to remember that I haven't voted for the NDP in 10 years, right? Over 10 years. Um, because they keep running to the right of the Liberals. So it's like, you know, I keep voting for the Liberals because you keep running to their right. It's not even that the Liberals are running to the left, it's you're running to their right. Um, so, so yeah, I mean, the voting base wised up to it and they turfed everyone. I mean, even a lot of good MPs lost in the last election, right? So, like, there's nobody, like they're down to the cactuses and the, and the drapes. Um, it might be the easiest race that Nikki Ashton has ever won. And she's won a lot of hard races. So I think maybe she's in for an easy one. I would kind of like to see Naomi Klein run. I don't think she'll do it. She's married. Here's something that most Americans probably don't know. You probably know who Naomi Klein is. You probably know she's from Canada. You probably don't realize that she's married to a guy whose father was the leader of the provincial NDP and whose grandfather was the leader of the federal NDP. So it's been a while. Okay, most people don't really know who Abby Lewis is. It's the truth. Naomi Klein has a lot more name recognition. But I mean, that's we're talking about like a socialist party here, so we can't really talk about the royalty of the socialist party. And there's something wrong with an aristocratic lineage in a socialist party, obviously. But nonetheless, if there was an aristocrat in Canada, it's Naomi Klein. She is. The things you can learn from reading or from listening to my blog. That there is about to open up a leadership race in Canada between a picture of Tommy Douglas and a mop bucket, with a possible late entry. Keep your fingers crossed by Naomi Klein. The most exciting politics in the world. Can Naomi Klein win in Canada? You know what? I think she could, and I think that would be the most outrageous election. Naomi Klein versus Justin Trudeau. And there'd be a conservative running too. Interesting. Anyways, I thought he'd probably pull it off. It was 52-48, so it was very close. This is Canada has a political system that has a lot of things like confidence votes that might not. Well, I'm sure you have something sort of like that in your House of Representatives, if not in your Senate. But losing a vote like this is demeaning. Normally, if he was expecting to lose, he would have stepped down. He would have spared himself the embarrassment of losing a vote, right? So that's humiliating, and hence the obnoxious laugh. But the guy's a opportunistic. He wasn't even on the left side of the Liberal Party, right? And it's very. I mean, you can blame him. At some point, the NDP has to blame itself for electing the guy, right? But hopefully, this is the beginning of the party righting itself. Draft Naomi. Listen, if you were in a country that had Naomi Klein as the titular head of its leftist political dynasty, wouldn't you be kind of itching about it? I bet she'd have to fight Abby off, but I mean, it's hey, what is the actual truth? She has way more name recognition than he does, right? It would. I mean, it would no doubt be one of those teamwork type things, right? But I mean, it's she would be the stronger general candidate by a long shot. But I mean, I think they could both win seats. And for what it's worth, the other thing that happened at the NDP convention this weekend was that they adopted something called a LEAP manifesto. I'll let you look it up. It's a haphazardly thrown together scrawl out of ideas that was meant just to change the narrative, I think, in the last election. Didn't quite do what they wanted, but I think it did have an effect. And the authors of that LEAP manifesto, which itself is like, why would you say LEAP manifesto? See, like it's like you're selling it to the. Like for real, it's like as though you're selling a pamphlet to a 20 to 25 age group. And you can just imagine, the 70-year-old uh, Polish immigrant voting for the Leap Manifesto. It might sell some books, but maybe not the best idea for retail politics, right? But I mean, that's regardless. The author of the platform that the New Democratic Party in Canada has adopted over the weekend is, in fact, Naomi Klein and her husband, Avi Lewis.